The first time Paige Whitaker pushed me onto her bed, I was holding an Allen wrench, wearing one sock, and trying very hard to be the kind of man my mother raised me to be. The bed was brand new, queen size, a white oak frame, one of those Scandinavian things that looked simple in the instructions and then immediately made you question every decision you had ever made. Paige stood over me with both hands on her hips, hair twisted up with a pencil, wearing faded jeans and a soft blue t-shirt with a smear of dust on her cheek. "Okay," she said, staring at the frame like it had personally insulted her. Moment of truth. I tightened the last bolt and sat back on my heels. If this collapses, I'm blaming Sweden. It came from Ohio. Then I'm blaming Ohio. She laughed, and that was the problem. I had lived across the hall from Paige for 4 months, and every time she laughed, something in me forgot the very reasonable speech I'd given myself about not getting involved with neighbors. I'm Carter Brooks. I was 25 then, working as a junior architect at a firm downtown, which sounds more impressive than it was. Mostly I corrected other people's drawings, drank bad office coffee, and pretended I didn't notice when my boss called my designs promising in the same tone you'd use for a puppy learning stairs. I liked clean lines, quiet mornings, not complicating my life. Paige was a complication with a key lime candle, a crooked smile, and the habit of knocking on my door like she already belonged there. She had moved into 3B in April with 12 boxes, one plant, and no bed. Not no bed frame. No bed. For the first week, I saw her carrying in lamps, plates, books, a coffee table, a rug rolled under one arm like she was wrestling a python. But every morning when I left for work, there she was, coming out of her apartment with a polite smile and faint shadows under her eyes. One Saturday, I finally caught her dragging a long cardboard box from the elevator, bumping it against every wall on our floor. "Need help?" I asked. She looked at me, then at the box, then back at me. "I was going for heroic and independent," she said. "You're giving more woman about to murder a hallway. That's also a valid design concept." I should have laughed, taken one end of the box, helped her carry it inside, and left. That was the safe version. Instead, I stepped into her apartment. It was brighter than mine. Same layout, totally different person. My place looked like a rental catalog with commitment issues. Pages had framed concert posters, a yellow armchair, stacks of novels on the floor, and a row of mugs hanging under the kitchen cabinet like tiny ceramic trophies. There were flowers on the table, not fancy ones, grocery store daisies in a mason jar. The place felt lived in before it was finished. She caught me looking. "I know," she said. "It's chaos." "No," I said, "it's warm." Her face changed just for a second, like I'd accidentally touched a bruise and a wish at the same time. Then she cleared her throat and kicked the cardboard box lightly. "Warm apartment, cold floor, hence the bed. Where's your toolbox?" She held up a butter knife. I stared at it. "What?" she said. "It's versatile." "Paige, don't say my name like I've disappointed the entire hardware community." "You have." That was how I ended up sitting on her bedroom floor at 10:30 on a Saturday morning, surrounded by bolts, slats, foam packaging, and the kind of instruction booklet that seemed translated by someone angry at furniture. Her bedroom smelled like fresh laundry and the orange peel she'd tossed into a small bowl on the dresser. Sunlight came through the blinds in pale stripes. It should not have felt intimate. It was assembly, manual labor, screws and brackets. But there is something dangerously personal about building a bed for a woman you're trying not to want. Especially when she sits cross-legged beside you, passing you hardware piece by piece. And every time her fingers brush yours, you both pretend it didn't happen. "You're good at this," she said. "I'm good at pretending I'm good at things until the evidence says otherwise. That's basically adulthood." "Exactly. Adulthood with better shoes." She glanced at my feet. "You're only wearing one sock." I looked down. At some point I had lost the other one in battle. Paige's smile went slow. "Carter Brooks, architect, gentleman, partial sock owner. I contain no defense. Good. Surrender is attractive." I looked up too fast. She looked down too fast. For a moment, the room got quiet in a way that had nothing to do with furniture. That was the thing about Paige. She flirted like she was joking, but sometimes the joke opened a door, and there she was behind it, watching to see if I'd step through. I didn't, not then, because 2 years before that, I dated someone in my building. Different apartment, different city. Same terrible idea. When it ended, I spent 6 months timing laundry like a fugitive and taking the stairs because the elevator had become emotionally haunted. So I had a rule. No neighbors, no coworkers, no women who could make your morning coffee run feel like a hostage negotiation if things went wrong. Paige did not know that rule. Or maybe she did and enjoyed leaning on it. By noon, the frame was assembled. Paige brought me lemonade in a glass with a chipped rim, and I was crouched beside the bed, tightening the center support. Last bolt, I said. Famous last words. Have a little faith. I had faith. Then you asked whether part G was decorative. It looked decorative. It was load-bearing. Many beautiful things are. She went still, and I realized what I'd said. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't even intentional. But the words hung there anyway, warm and awkward and too honest. Paige set her glass on the dresser. Are you calling my bed beautiful? She asked. I'm calling structural integrity beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's an architectural opinion. Very professional. Deeply. She walked around to the side of the bed, pressed both hands to the mattress, and bounced lightly. No sound. She bounced harder. Still nothing. I stood, wiping my hands on my jeans. Solid. Paige turned toward me with that smile again. The dangerous one. The one that made my rule feel less like wisdom and more like cowardice. We should test it properly, she said. We? You helped build it. I supervised several bolts emotionally. Then you deserve the honor. Before I could ask what that meant, she put both palms against my chest and pushed. Not hard, not rough, just enough. I fell backward onto the mattress with a surprised laugh, the Allen wrench still in my hand, my one socked foot hanging off the side. The bed didn't squeak. Paige leaned over me, bracing one hand beside my shoulder, her pencil-loosened hair slipping along her cheek. Let's see if it squeaks, she said. Every sensible thought I had ever owned packed a suitcase and left. She was close enough that I could see a tiny fleck of gold near her left iris, close enough to smell lemonade on her breath, close enough that if I lifted my head, the day would become something neither of us could politely blame on furniture. I should have made a joke. I should have sat up. Instead, I looked at her mouth. Paige saw me do it. Her smile faded, but not because she was offended, because suddenly we both understood that the teasing had carried us somewhere real. Carter, she said softly. My name sounded different in her bedroom. I swallowed. Paige. The bed gave one tiny creak beneath us. She laughed under her breath. There it is. Faulty craftsmanship. Or maybe it just needed pressure. That line should have been ridiculous, maybe it was. But her voice trembled at the end, just enough to turn the room serious. I set the Allen wrench on the nightstand without looking away from her. Are we still talking about the bed? I asked. She held my gaze. Then her phone buzzed on the dresser. Once, twice, 3 times. The spell cracked, but it didn't disappear. Paige closed her eyes like she already knew who it was, then pushed herself upright. I sat up, slower than necessary because my heart was behaving like I'd sprinted up 3 flights of stairs. Sorry, she said. Don't be. She picked up the phone, and I watched the color drain from her face. That got me standing. Everything okay? Paige didn't answer right away. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering, jaw tight. Then she let out a humorless little laugh. My sister, she said. That sounds survivable. Usually. She turned the phone toward me. The text was from someone named Mallory. Dinner tonight. Mom's coming too. Please tell me you finally told everyone the wedding is off. And please don't show up alone if you're going to cry in the bathroom again. I looked from the phone to Paige. Wedding. Off. Cry in the bathroom. 3 details I had not been expecting in a room that still smelled like sawdust and lemonade. Paige pulled the phone back and pressed it against her chest, like she could hide the words after I'd already seen them. I was going to mention that eventually, she said. The bed? The ex-fiancé. I didn't know what my face did, but hers softened. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. You came over to help with furniture, not become part of my personal disaster tour. I should have stepped back. Neighbor rule, emotional caution, all the old signs flashing red. Instead, I looked at the bed we'd built together, then at the woman standing beside it, trying to joke her way out of being seen. What time is dinner? I asked. Paige blinked. What? You heard me. Her lips parted. Then very quietly she said, Carter, if you come with me tonight, my family is going to assume things. Then we'll be clear. They won't be. I can handle questions. She studied me for a long second and something vulnerable flickered beneath the mischief. That's not what I'm worried about, she said. What are you worried about? Paige looked down at my missing sock on her bedroom floor, then back at me. I'm worried, she said, that if I bring you to dinner, I might not want to pretend. There are sentences a man should treat like a yellow traffic light. I'm worried that if I bring you to dinner, I might not want to pretend. A cautious man slows down. A wise man stops. I apparently was neither. I looked at Paige standing in the middle of her half-finished bedroom, hair slipping free of the pencil, cheeks pink from saying something too honest, and I made the kind of decision that changes the weather inside your chest. Then don't pretend, I said. She stared at me. The apartment went so quiet I could hear traffic hissing 3 floors below. That is a reckless answer, she said. I've been told I'm overdue for one. You don't even know what you're agreeing to. Dinner, your family, possible interrogation, maybe a weird casserole. My mother doesn't do casseroles. She does emotional autopsies over risotto. Still in. Paige folded her arms, but it didn't look defensive. It looked like she was holding herself together. You have a rule, don't you? She asked. I blinked. What? A rule about me? I should have lied. I didn't. No neighbors. Her mouth curved, sad and amused at the same time. I knew it. How? Because every time we flirt, you look like someone just handed you a lit match in a fireworks store. That is uncomfortably accurate. And yet you're offering to come to family dinner. I am. Why? Because I liked the way she laughed. Because when I called her apartment warm, she looked like she'd been waiting a long time for someone to notice. Because she had almost kissed me 5 minutes ago, and my entire body still felt like it was leaning toward her. I said the safest, true thing. Because I don't want you crying in a bathroom alone. Her expression softened, but only for a second. That's kind, she said, but it's not enough. No? No. She stepped closer. If you come, Carter, it can't just be because you feel sorry for me. I don't. Good. She took another step. The bed was behind me. Paige was in front of me. My rule was somewhere on the floor with my missing sock. Then say the real reason, she said. My throat went dry. This was the part where I usually retreated behind a joke. Paige seemed to know that because she waited me out, eyes steady, daring me to be as brave as she had been. So I was. Because I want to spend the evening with you, I said. Even if your family is there, even if it's messy, even if it's a terrible idea. Her lips parted slightly. And, I added before I could stop myself, because when you said you might not want to pretend, I was hoping you meant it. For a moment she didn't move. Then she reached up and brushed sawdust from my shoulder with the tips of her fingers. It was such a small touch. It still hit me harder than the shove onto the bed. I meant it, she whispered. We didn't kiss. Not then. Maybe because the air between us had become too charged, and a kiss would have turned a spark into a house fire. Maybe because Paige's phone buzzed again, and she winced like real life had terrible timing. She checked the message. My mother wants to know if I'm bringing the poet or the accountant. I frowned. Those were options? Blind date attempts? Long story. Am I the architect? Her gaze slid over me. You're the neighbor with one sock and suspiciously good hands. I looked down at my hands. They assemble furniture. They do other things too, I assume. Paige. There's the disappointed hardware community voice again. I laughed, and the tension eased, but it didn't vanish. It settled into something warmer, something expectant. Dinner was at 7. At 6:40, I stood in front of her door wearing dark jeans, a navy button-down, and both socks. I had changed 3 times, which was ridiculous for a fake date, especially one that was apparently not entirely fake. Paige opened the door before I knocked. She wore a black wrap dress and small gold earrings. Her hair was down now, soft around her shoulders, and for 2 full seconds I forgot my own name. Then she smiled. You found the other sock. Didn't want your mother to think I was unstable. Oh, she'll find something else. You look. I stopped. Beautiful felt obvious. Dangerous felt too honest. Like every rule I'd ever made was standing in front of me, tied at the waist with a black sash. Paige's smile tilted. Careful, Brooks. You look like I'm going to embarrass myself tonight. Her face lit. That might be the best compliment I've ever received. In the elevator, we stood closer than necessary. Not touching. Almost. Our reflection stared back from the dull metal doors, me trying to look calm, Paige pretending not to notice that I was failing. So, I said, what's our story? Our story? If anyone asks. She turned to me. Do we need one? Depends how much not pretending we're doing. The elevator hummed downward. Paige looked at my hand. Then she reached over and laced her fingers through mine. No warning, no joke. Her palm was warm, her grip was firm. There, she said softly. That's our story. The elevator doors opened and neither of us let go. Her family dinner was at a small Italian place, 2 neighborhoods over, all amber light, brick walls, and tables close enough that everyone knew everyone else's bread order. Mallory spotted us first. She looked like Paige, but sharper around the edges, with a sleek bob and the focused expression of someone who could win an argument with a parking meter. Her eyes dropped to our joined hands. Oh, Mallory said. Paige squeezed my fingers. Hi to you too. Mallory's gaze moved to me. And you are? Carter, the architect neighbor, Paige added. Mallory's eyebrows rose so high they nearly left the restaurant. The one with the toolbox? Technically, I said. Paige had a butter knife. Mallory stared at her sister. You were going to build a bed with a butter knife? It was a multi-use tool, Paige said. It was cutlery. Their mother, Vivian, arrived at the table like a very elegant weather system. Silver hair, red lipstick, cream blazer, eyes that missed absolutely nothing. She kissed Paige's cheek, then looked at me. Carter, she said, before anyone introduced me. You're handsome. Mom, Paige muttered. I'm not blind. Still, Vivian sat. Are you the reason my daughter is smiling like that? Paige froze. I felt her hand tighten around mine beneath the table. Here it was. The emotional autopsy. I could have joked. Instead, I looked at Paige. She was smiling, but there was fear under it. Not fear of them exactly. Fear of being exposed as someone who had hoped and been humiliated for it. So I answered carefully. I hope I'm part of the reason, I said. Paige turned toward me. Her eyes shone a little in the candlelight. For the first time all night, her mother said nothing. Dinner could have been awful. Some parts were close. They asked about my job, my family, my apartment, how long Paige and I had known each other. Mallory kicked Paige under the table when Paige said, Carter tightened my slats, and I nearly choked on water. Vivian mentioned Paige's ex-fiancé only once. Have you spoken to Nolan? Paige's hand went still in mine. No, she said. Good, Mallory said into her wine. Vivian sighed. I only asked because closure matters. Sometimes closure is changing the locks and buying new sheets, Paige said. Under the table, my thumb brushed over her knuckles. Not to rescue her, to remind her I was there because I wanted to be. She looked at me, and the sharpness in her face softened. After dinner, while Mallory argued with Vivian about paying the check, Paige slipped outside for air. I followed a minute later and found her beneath the restaurant awning, city lights glimmering in the puddles from an earlier rain. She hugged her arms around herself. You did well. I didn't spill wine or challenge your mother to combat. High bar. I aim to impress. She smiled, then looked down. Thank you for not making me explain him. Nolan? Her mouth tightened at the name. You don't owe me the story tonight, I said. I know. She breathed in slowly. But I want you to know one thing. I waited. I didn't leave because I stopped believing in love. Her voice was quiet. I left because he made me feel stupid for believing in it with him. Something in my chest hurt. Paige looked up at me. And tonight, holding your hand in there, I didn't feel stupid. I stepped closer. Rain dripped from the awning behind us. A taxi rushed past, spraying silver across the curb. Paige's face was tipped up to mine, open and nervous and brave. I'm glad, I said. That's all? No. Her breath caught. I lifted my hand slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. I touched her cheek, thumb brushing the place where sawdust had been earlier. I wanted to kiss you on that bed, I said. Her eyes darkened. I know. I want to kiss you now. Then stop giving speeches, Carter. So I did. I kissed her under the awning, soft at first, because despite all the flirting, all the almost, this felt like crossing into holy ground. Paige made a small sound against my mouth and gripped the front of my shirt, pulling me closer. The kiss changed. Not rushed. Not careless. Chosen. When we broke apart, her forehead rested against mine. So much for your no neighbors rule, she whispered. I'm revising it. To what? I brushed my nose against hers. No neighbors unless they push me onto furniture first. She laughed, breathless and bright. Then her phone buzzed. We both looked down. A message lit the screen. Nolan. Heard you brought someone to dinner. We should talk. Paige went very still. I took her hand again, but this time she was the one who squeezed first. No, she said, almost to herself. Then she looked at me. Take me home, Carter. I smiled softly and kissed her knuckles. Yeah, I said, but only because I'm still owed a squeak test. On the ride home, Paige didn't talk about Nolan. She talked about risotto. Specifically how her mother considered it a personality test. If you stir too much, Paige said, watching the city slide past the cab window, you're controlling. If you don't stir enough, you lack commitment. And if you order pasta instead, you fear intimacy. I nodded solemnly. That explains the gnocchi. She smiled, but it was tired around the edges. Nolan's message sat between us, even though her phone was buried in her purse. I wanted to ask a dozen questions. Did he always do that? Appear the moment she started breathing again? Who told him about dinner? Why did his name make her hand go cold? But questions can feel like hands around someone's shoulders if you ask them wrong. So I reached across the seat, palm up. Paige looked at my hand. Then she put hers in it. That was all. By the time we reached our building, rain had started again, thin and silver under the streetlights. We ran from the curb to the entrance, laughing when Paige's heel caught in a crack, and she grabbed my arm to steady herself. Elegant, she said. Very, like a gazelle with tax problems. She swatted my chest, but she didn't let go. In the elevator, the mirror showed us damp and flushed, her black dress speckled with rain, my collar dark at the edges. We stood close now without, pretending it was accidental. Third floor, second. The elevator jolted softly. Paige looked up at me. You really don't have to come in. I know. I'm serious. Tonight got complicated. I turned toward her. Paige, I'm not here because it's uncomplicated. Her eyes searched mine. I'm here because you are, I said. The elevator doors opened. For a second, she didn't move. Then she tugged me by the hand into the hallway. Her apartment was exactly as we'd left it, except the evening had changed everything. The half-empty lemonade glass on the dresser looked intimate now. The stray screw on the floor looked like evidence. The bed sat in the bedroom, newly made with white sheets and a quilt the color of storm clouds. Paige dropped her purse on the table. I'm going to block his number, she said. I stopped in the living room. You don't have to do it because I'm here. I'm not. She pulled out her phone, stared at it, then looked at me. I'm doing it because I kissed a man under an awning and didn't spend the whole time apologizing in my head. That knocked the breath right out of me. She tapped the screen twice, then turned it toward me. Blocked. No speech, no dramatic music, just her thumb choosing peace. I crossed the room slowly. How does it feel? Like deleting a draft I kept rewriting even though the story was bad. Writer? Middle school English teacher. I smiled. That explains the ruthless metaphor. It explains my patience with confusing instructions and your one-sock lifestyle. I stopped in front of her. Do you want to talk about him? Not tonight. Okay. Her shoulders lowered like she'd expected a fight and found a door open instead. But I want to talk about you, she said. Me? Yes, you, the man who has rules and good hands and apparently kisses like he's trying to ruin my decision-making skills. My pulse kicked. How am I doing? Catastrophically well. She stepped closer, and this time she was the one who touched my face. Her fingers traced my jaw, light enough to make my stomach tighten. Why no neighbors? She asked. There it was. I looked toward her kitchen, the mugs in their neat little row, the daisies beginning to droop in their jar. I dated someone in my old building, I said. It ended badly, not explosively, worse, politely, which meant every hallway became a stage for pretending we were fine. Paige's thumb stilled against my cheek. I hated that, I admitted. Hated feeling trapped in my own home. So I made rules. No neighbors, no coworkers, no women who could turn an ordinary Tuesday into a navigation problem. And then I moved in, dragging furniture like a threat. Her smile appeared, soft and brief. I don't want to make your home feel unsafe, she said. You don't. Not yet. Paige. No, listen. She lowered her hand. I like you. More than is reasonable for someone who only recently watched you lose a sock assembling a bed. But I'm not trying to be another mistake you have to avoid in the laundry room. That was the moment I understood something about her. The teasing wasn't a mask exactly. It was a doorbell. A bright sound at the entrance to a house with rooms she didn't let many people enter. I took her hand and pressed it flat against my chest. You're not a mistake I'm avoiding, I said. You're the reason I'm questioning whether the rule was ever protecting me or just keeping me lonely. Her eyes filled, though she blinked it back fast. That was annoyingly good, she whispered. I've been saving all my emotional intelligence for one dramatic hallway-adjacent moment. We're in my living room. Close enough. She laughed and then she kissed me, not like under the awning. This kiss had no audience, no rain, no family waiting inside. It was just Paige rising on her toes and me bending toward her, both of us choosing the next second and the next. Her hand slid into my hair. Mine settled at her waist, careful until she pulled me closer with an impatient sound that made my knees consider resigning. We stumbled once, laughing against each other's mouths. The bed, she murmured. I froze. She pulled back enough to see my face, then smiled. First sitting, Carter, maybe kissing. Possibly Squeak research. I'm not submitting a grant. Proposal. Right, research. Very academic. We sat on the edge of the bed, side by side, shoulders touching, rain tapping the window. For a while we just kissed slowly and talked in between, which somehow felt more intimate than rushing. She told me she kept buying plants and killing them because she loved the idea of being someone who remembered to water things. I told her I owned 3 identical gray sweaters because I panicked in clothing stores. She admitted she'd noticed me before we officially met. When? I asked. The week I moved in. You held the lobby door for Mrs. Alvarez and listened to her entire story about her grandson's trumpet recital. That story had chapters. You didn't look impatient once. I was raised to fear grandmothers. She smiled, then rested her head on my shoulder. I went still from the sweetness of it. You seemed kind, she said. Not performative kind. Quiet kind. My arm came around her. And you seemed, I said, like trouble. She lifted her head. Excuse me? You had a plant under one arm and a lamp under the other and told the delivery guy, I reject the tyranny of measuring tape. It was a narrow doorway. You were holding the lamp sideways. Creative problem solving. Trouble. She bit her lip, eyes bright. Do you like trouble? I leaned in until my mouth brushed her ear. I'm revising my position. The bed creaked. We both looked down. Paige whispered, Scientific breakthrough. I kissed her laughing mouth. Later, when the rain softened and the clock on her nightstand blinked 11:48, I knew I should go across the hall. Not because I wanted distance, but because this thing between us felt too new to handle carelessly. Paige seemed to know. She walked me to her door barefoot, my hand in hers. This was a date, she said. Definitely. Even with my mother? Especially with your mother. High difficulty score. And this? She touched 2 fingers to my shirt front. This is not fake. I covered her hand with mine. Not for me. Her breath shivered. Not for me either, she said. I kissed her goodnight in her doorway, slow enough to promise another one. When I stepped into the hall, I felt ridiculously happy. Like the whole building had tilted toward her door. Then I saw the envelope. It had been slid under my apartment door across the hall. No stamp, no return address. Just my name written in block letters. Carter. Paige saw it too. Her fingers tightened around mine. That wasn't there earlier. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single photo printed on cheap, glossy paper. Paige and me under the restaurant awning, kissing in the rain. On the back, someone had written, Ask her what happened before the wedding. Paige's face went pale. For one heartbeat, the hallway felt cold. Then she took the photo from my hand, stared at it, and let out a shaky breath. I was going to tell you, she said. I looked at her, not at the photo, not at the warning, not at whatever ghost had followed her home. At her. Then tell me tomorrow, I said softly. Tonight, I'm still the guy who wants to kiss you goodnight. Her eyes broke open with relief. So I did. Right there in the hallway with the ugly photo folded in her fist, I kissed Paige like some anonymous coward didn't get to decide what our first real night meant. And when she kissed me back, fierce and trembling, I knew the story had changed. Not because Nolan was back. Because Paige reached for me afterward and whispered, Stay a minute. So I stayed. I stayed a minute. Then an hour. Not in her bed. Not that night. We ended up on her couch with the ugly photo face down on the coffee table, like if neither of us looked at it, it might learn shame and leave. Paige sat tucked into the corner, knees drawn up, my jacket around her shoulders even though the apartment wasn't cold. I sat beside her close enough that our thighs touched. For a while we didn't talk. The city made soft noises beyond the windows. Pipes clicked in the walls. Somewhere downstairs someone laughed too loudly at a television show. Finally, Paige said, Before the wedding I found out Nolan had been lying. I turned my head toward her. She kept staring at the photo. Not cheating, she said. That would have been cleaner, honestly. Easier to explain at family dinners. He'd been telling people things about me. Small things at first. That I was dramatic, forgetful, too emotional. That I'd agreed to decisions I hadn't agreed to. Her voice stayed calm, which somehow made it worse. He changed the venue contract and said I'd approved it. Told his mother I wanted her to choose the flowers, then told me I'd asked for help. He moved money from our honeymoon fund to cover a deposit on an apartment I didn't want. I felt my jaw tighten. Paige saw it and touched my wrist. Don't do the noble murder face. I don't have a noble murder face. You do. It's architectural, very symmetrical. Despite everything, I almost smiled. She inhaled, then continued. The week before the wedding, I overheard him telling one of his friends that once we were married, I'd settle down. That he just had to get me through the ceremony before I changed my mind. Her fingers curled into my sleeve. So I changed my mind early. Good, I said quietly. She looked at me. Not polite enough? No, she whispered. Good. Her eyes shone, and I hated Nolan for making her surprised by simple agreement. At the rehearsal dinner, she said, I told everyone the wedding was off. I didn't explain all of it. I couldn't. His parents were there, mine, friends. He looked devastated, perfectly devastated, like I'd humiliated him for no reason. And people believed him. Some did. She swallowed. I think that's what the photo means. Ask her what happened before the wedding. He wants you to wonder if I'm cruel, unstable, a woman who destroys things and smiles afterward. I leaned forward and picked up the photo, then tore it cleanly in half. Paige blinked. I tore it again. And again. Tiny glossy pieces fell into my palm. That was dramatic, she said. I panicked. It was either that or challenge the photo to combat. A laugh escaped her. Fragile, but real. I dropped the pieces into the trash beside the couch and turned back to her. Paige, I don't think you destroy things. Her smile trembled. I think you escaped one. That did it. She covered her face and I moved closer, not grabbing, not fixing, just there. After a second, she leaned into me and I wrapped my arms around her. She cried quietly into my shirt. I held her and looked at the bed visible through the bedroom doorway, the frame we'd built that morning, solid despite every confusing piece. Maybe intimacy isn't always heat. Sometimes it's a woman letting herself fall apart because she believes you won't use the pieces against her. When she finally pulled back, she wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. Sorry, she said. No. It's not very seductive. I brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. You're wrong. Her eyebrows lifted. Not the crying, I clarified. The trust. Her mouth softened. That may be the most dangerous thing you've said to me yet. I have worse. Please don't hold back on my account. I cupped her face, and this time when I kissed her, it wasn't rain-soaked or teasing. It was slow, steady. A promise pressed gently into her mouth. I choose you as you are. Paige kissed me back like she believed me or wanted to. When we parted, she rested her forehead against mine. I don't want him in this room, she whispered. He isn't. The photo is trash. The message, blocked. The past, not gone, I said. But it doesn't get your couch. She laughed again, a little stronger. My couch appreciates your boundaries. I'm very firm with furniture. I noticed. We sat like that until the room felt like hers again. At nearly 1 a.m, I stood. I should go. Paige caught my hand. Because of your rule? Because I want to come back tomorrow on purpose. Her lips parted. And because, I added, if I stay tonight, I don't want either of us wondering later whether it was comfort or choice. She stared at me for a long second. Then she stood too, my jacket slipping from her shoulders. That is unfairly decent. I apologize. No, you don't. No, I don't. At the door, she rose on her toes and kissed me once. Then again, longer. Tomorrow, she said against my mouth. Tomorrow. Breakfast? Are we talking coffee and bagels, or is this another emotional autopsy? With carbs? Coffee, bagels. Maybe I let you see my classroom if you behave. A second location already? I'm reckless. I smiled. I noticed. The next morning, I bought bagels from the place on Maple that always burned the sesame ones, and somehow made them better for it. Paige opened her door wearing leggings, an oversized green sweater, and no makeup. She looked sleepy and soft, and so beautiful it made me briefly resent all poets for having already used the good words. You brought sustenance, she said, and 2 coffees. I didn't know your order, so I guessed. She took one, sipped, and narrowed her eyes. Oat milk. Cinnamon. 1 sugar. I saw the carton in your fridge. Observation skills, attractive. Architect. Neighbor. She leaned in and kissed me in the doorway like it was already a habit. Breakfast became a date without anyone announcing it. We sat on her living room floor because the coffee table was full of instruction booklets, and Paige fed me half her blueberry bagel after declaring my onion one socially aggressive. She showed me photos of her classroom. Paper stars strung from the ceiling, a reading corner with mismatched pillows, a wall of student quotes. One said, Miss W says metaphors are windows, but I think they are sneaky doors. That kid gets it, I said. She's terrifyingly brilliant. You love them. Paige's expression went tender. I do. Watching her talk about her students did something to me. The same thing her apartment had done the first day, made me aware of all the warmth she carried around and offered to the world, even after someone had tried to convince her she was too much. You're looking at me weird, she said. I'm looking at you accurately. Her cheeks went pink. That sounds fake profound. It's architect profound, structurally sound, aesthetically questionable. She laughed and leaned her shoulder into mine. After breakfast, we walked to her school because she needed to pick up essays. The building was closed except for weekend staff, quiet hallways smelling faintly of floor wax and dry erase markers. Her classroom was on the second floor, bright even on a gray morning. Inside, Paige became a different version of herself. Still funny, still quick, but rooted. She moved between desks, straightened a crooked poster, picked up a fallen pencil. On her whiteboard in neat handwriting was a quote, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." Emily Dickinson, she said. I knew that. No, you didn't. No, I didn't. She grinned. I wandered to the reading corner. This place feels like you. Chaotic? Warm. Her smile faded just like the first time. Only this time she didn't look away. Carter, she said softly. I crossed the room to her. She met me halfway between two rows of desks. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of Nolan, of this, of how fast I want it. My chest tightened. I'm scared too. You don't seem scared? That's because I'm tall. People mistake it for emotional stability. She huffed a laugh, then took my hand. I threaded our fingers together. We can go slow, I said. But I'm not going to pretend I feel less than I do just because feeling more is inconvenient. Her eyes searched mine. What do you feel? I looked at her classroom, her paper stars, her quote about truth, then back at her. Like I was living across the hall from the best part of my day and calling it a rule. Paige went very still. Then she pulled me down by my shirt front and kissed me between the desks. It was not a cautious kiss. It was a bell-ringing, pencil-dropping, rule-burning kiss. And when she smiled against my mouth, I knew I was done pretending this was temporary. A knock sounded at the classroom door. Paige jerked back. A man stood in the hallway, hand resting on the doorframe. Pressed shirt. Expensive watch. Expression rehearsed into concern. Nolan. His gaze moved from Paige's flushed face to my hand still at her waist. Well, he said quietly, that answers one question. Nolan's voice had the kind of softness that wanted witnesses. Paige went rigid beside me. I felt it in the hand still resting at her waist, the sudden held breath, the old instinct to shrink before she remembered she didn't have to. Then she stepped out of my touch, not away from me. Forward. This is my classroom, she said. You don't get to show up here. Nolan's eyes flicked to me, then back to her. I came because you blocked me. Yes. I was worried. No, she said. You were annoyed. His concerned expression tightened at the edges. Paige, can we talk privately? No. One word, clean, steady. I had never been prouder of anyone in my life. Nolan glanced at me again. Is he answering for you now? Paige laughed once, sharp and bright. That's funny, considering your favorite hobby was answering for me. The hallway seemed to hold still. Nolan's face changed. Not much. Just enough to show the man underneath the performance. You're making a mistake, he said. Paige reached back without looking and found my hand. Her fingers slid through mine. No, she said. I already made one. I'm done repeating it. He looked at our joined hands and I braced for anger, for accusation, for some final cruel thing designed to burrow under her skin. But Paige didn't give him room. If you contact me again at work, at home, through my family, or by leaving photos under Carter's door, I'll report it. I kept the messages. Mallory has copies. This conversation is over. Nolan's jaw flexed. For 1 second, I thought he might keep pushing. Then a custodian appeared at the end of the hall with a mop bucket and the unimpressed expression of a man who had seen middle schoolers try everything. You folks need something? He called. Paige didn't look away from Nolan. No, Mr. Ruiz, he was just leaving. And just like that, Nolan became smaller. Not harmless, not forgiven, just smaller. He straightened his cuffs, gave me one last look like I was supposed to feel warned, and walked away. Paige stood perfectly still until his footsteps faded. Then she turned and pressed her face into my chest. I wrapped my arms around her. "You were incredible," I whispered. "I'm shaking." "You can shake and still be incredible." She laughed into my shirt, a watery little sound. "That should be on a mug. I'll add it to your collection." She lifted her head. "You didn't say anything." "You didn't need me to." Her eyes searched mine and something in them unclenched. Then she kissed me. Right there in her classroom, beneath paper stars and Emily Dickinson, Paige kissed me like she was reclaiming every room Nolan had ever made feel unsafe. When we pulled apart, she touched my cheek. "I don't want to run from this," she said. "From us." "Then don't." "I want slow," she said. "Okay, but not distant." I smiled. "Also okay. And I want you to come over tonight." My pulse jumped. "For dinner," she added, though her smile said she'd noticed. "I make very good grilled cheese." "Paige Whitaker, are you asking me on a second date?" "I'm asking if you can handle advanced culinary intimacy." "With tomato soup?" "Obviously." "I'll bring dessert." "And both socks?" "I make no promises." That evening we ate grilled cheese on her living room floor, our knees touching, her phone silent on the counter. Afterward, we washed dishes side by side and she flicked soap bubbles at me until I kissed her against the sink. We went slow. Not perfectly. Not elegantly. Some nights we burned with wanting and still said goodnight at the door because trust was something we were building with our own hands, bolt by bolt. Some mornings I found a note taped to my door. Coffee, or emergency spider relocation required, or I bought a plant. Pray for it. I learned her moods by the music drifting through the wall. She learned that I worked too late when I was anxious and started leaving muffins on my drafting table with notes like, "Buildings need foundations." So, do humans. Eat. Nolan tried once more, through an email full of polished regret. Paige deleted it while sitting beside me on the couch. Then she looked at me and said, "I don't feel stupid anymore." I kissed her forehead and said, "Good." By the following spring, the no neighbors rule had become a joke people told at our expense. Mallory called me Toolbox. Vivian told Paige I had kind eyes and terrible posture. Mrs. Alvarez from the lobby saw us holding hands by the mailboxes and said, "Finally," as if she had personally written the screenplay. Paige's first plant survived. Then a second. The third died, dramatically, but we held a small funeral in a yogurt container, and Paige wore black for 10 minutes. 6 months after the day I built her bed, I came home to find my apartment door open and a trail of paper stars leading across the hall. Inside Paige's place, the lights were low. The bed was still there, white oak frame and storm gray quilt, sturdier than ever. On the nightstand sat the Allen wrench in a tiny frame. I stared at it. "Is that my Allen wrench?" "Our Allen wrench." "You framed hardware." "It's sentimental hardware." She stood by the window in one of my gray sweaters, sleeves covering her hands, hair loose over her shoulders. My heart did the same stupid, helpless thing it had done the first day. "You look like trouble," I said. She smiled. "You love trouble." "I love you." The words came out before I planned them, simple and whole. Paige's smile disappeared. For one terrible second, I thought I had moved too fast. Then she crossed the room and climbed onto the bed, standing on the mattress in her bare feet. "Paige?" She held out both hands. "Come here," I laughed. "Is this structurally advisable? Trust your craftsmanship." I took her hands and she pulled me up beside her. The bed creaked under our combined weight. "There it is," I said. She touched my face, eyes bright. "I love you too, Carter." Then she pushed me. I fell backward onto the mattress, laughing, and she came down beside me, half on top of me, her hair falling around us like a curtain. "Still testing for Squeaks?" I asked. "Always." The bed gave one small, familiar creak as she kissed me. And this time, I didn't think about rules, or haunted hallways, or all the ways love could go wrong. I thought about the woman who had opened her door with a butter knife and a challenge, who had let me see her fear and then chosen me anyway. I thought about how some things come in impossible boxes with terrible instructions, and somehow, if you're patient, if you're honest, if you tighten the right pieces and leave room for laughter, they become a place to rest. A year after that first Saturday, Paige and I moved into a bigger apartment on the fourth floor, one with better light for her plants and space near the window for my drafting table. We kept the old bed. Of course we did. Sometimes, when friends ask how we got together, Paige says, "He built my bed." And I say, "She pushed me onto it." Then she adds, "For science." And every time she reaches for my hand like the story is still happening, because it is. What would you have done if your neighbor pushed you onto the bed you'd just built and said, "Let's see if it squeaks"? Have you ever had a moment with someone that started as a joke but turned into something real? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.